So 4 goals in 8 minutes. It was the stuff of dreams. I couldn't believe what I was watching yesterday. So much to get into. Nathan Jones said it was the best Southampton have played all season. Is that a fair comment, Alfie?
Yeah, it's the best Southampton have played for a long, long time. I mean, I know we beat teams sort of 5-0, 4-0 under Russell Martin about this time in 2023, and then that goes back to those performances. It was good as anything we've seen since then, and maybe it was better than what we saw then as well. Who knows? But I think Leo Cienza set the tone straight away in the match. I think one of his first touches was sort of bringing down a smash ball forward and jinking around one defender, Meg's in another, and setting up a really good chance for Kasper Jander, and then he set up another one for Finn Azaz, or maybe it was Tom Fellows a couple of minutes later, and Azaz should have scored. I think it was Cienza who squared it across the box to him. He took a heavy touch, and it was a good save from the goalkeeper. But Saints could have been 2 goals up in 10 minutes, to be honest with you. But then after that, the floodgates did open, and I'll leave Glenn to talk about the opposition manager a little bit later on. But, goal number 1 in the 14th minute is a Tom Fellows cross, a Ryan Manning header, but it starts from the back. It's playing out from the back. It's really good. The defending's poor. Goal number 2 is in the 16th minute. Leo Cienza, a pass through to Adam Armstrong, a driving run from Leo Cienza. Armour gets a little bit lucky with the rebound, but there's 2 goals up in 16 minutes, and we're all thinking this is brilliant. And then 20 minutes, get goal number 3. Another Armstrong pass this time. Kasper Jander, great finish. Again, it's a brilliant pass, a brilliant move out the back. They're knocking it between Gavin Bazunu, between the centre halves, and then within 3 passes, Cameron Bragg, a square pass, Harwood-Bellis, 1 pass forward, and then Armour plays it in behind, and Kasper Jander finishes it. And it's 3 goals up in 20 minutes. 22nd minute, 4th goal, Adam Armstrong pass. Zaz rounds the goalkeeper, and again, it's there's a moment where Jack Stevens has got the ball. All 3 defenders have touched it. Cameron Bragg has touched it. He then steps forward, and it's 2 or 3 passes again from the half of the pitch into the back of the net. And it's some of the best stuff I've ever seen. And Nathan Jones did then make a change, and I think he could see that basically he wanted his team to be aggressive. He wanted his team to come out and attack Saints and to press them everywhere on the pitch. But they were sort of half doing it, half not. They were coming out, they were leaving spaces, but they weren't actually getting anywhere near the ball. They weren't putting any pressure on the Saints players, so they were just knocking it around them. And you had 2 or 3 runners in the final line every single time. And Adam Armstrong was brilliant. Adam Armstrong's the best performance I think I've ever seen from him in any position, but especially as a number 9, playing like Che Adams for me, dropping into the halfway line and knocking it to the 2 runners either side, and it's some brilliant stuff. And then obviously we had the other 2 goals in the game just before half-time. Tom Fellows, a little cross-come shot into the back post. Azaz finishes it for a brace. And then we had the poor goal conceded, to be fair. If we're being really nitpicky, I know we were 5 goals up, but it's a completely unmarked header from a corner right before half-time that makes it 5-1. So it's still no clean sheet under Tom de Rekker. But what an amazing first half. What an absolutely brilliant bunch of goals. And it's 3 wins in 3 for the interim boss.
As I said, there's so much to get into. Adam Armstrong, as you say, they're his best game in years. We need to talk about Fellows and the wingers and Cam Bragg as well. And it's difficult to know where to start, Glenn, because there was so much that went right, and we could have been a couple of goals up before we actually did take the lead, because there were some chances that we missed as well.
Yeah, and you get to that point where you've had sort of like a couple of decent chances. The Azaz one in particular. Adam Armstrong put a header over the bar, which wasn't great either. And, you sort of think, is it going to be another one of those where we miss chances and then Charlton score with their first attack? But we kind of mitigated that by not letting them have an attack. It was it was brilliant stuff. And once the first goal went in, it was just ridiculous from then on in. It was just like I couldn't believe what I was watching. As you said, we just absolutely tore them to shreds. Helped by Charlton being woeful. I mean, to be honest, Alfie touched on it. The front 4 sort of had a half-assed attempt at pressing our defenders, but they were easy to play round. And once we played round them, the Charlton defence and midfield weren't pushing up aggressively. So what that meant was a huge space in the middle of the park. Adam Armstrong dropped into it. Kasper Jander and Cameron Bragg ended up there, and they could just build up at will, but. Again, it's a lot more impressive what we're doing once we break the lines. This was always the problem we had going back to the Russell Martin days, is that when we broke the lines, we tended to stop and let everyone funnel back. And we just weren't doing that. It was like pass forward, through on goal, shot, and goal virtually every time for those for those 10 minutes. So there definitely has been a shift in the attitude with regards to, when we do start going forward, we keep going forward. There's not so much sort of like everyone going, oh no, we can't do that, and stopping and letting everyone get back. So Cienza sets the tone because he just has no thought of playing it safe or going backwards. And you look at that second goal, he gets the ball, he's kind of hemmed in, he's got two players behind him. And what we've seen for the longest time with Saints is that ball just gets played back to the left back, then it gets played to the centre back or whatever. And he just like senses the guy's on his shoulder. He senses there's a gap. He turns, he's gone. They should have brought him down. I mean, they clearly should have taken a yellow card there. But he gets to the edge of the box, slips it to Amo-Ameyaw, and that's the second goal, and that's game over. But that intent just wouldn't have been there, and you get the impression that that is Cienza, that's what he wants to do, but he's obviously been given the license, the license to go and do that. They've said to him, you can go and do that. If you lose the ball, you lose the ball. And to me, that's that makes for a much more entertaining game of football. The sort of thing that fans can really get behind. Even if you do get beat, at least you're trying to have a go and you're trying to put the opposition defence on the back foot. And the one thing Nathan Jones did get right in his press conference afterwards, the one thing he did get right was in his press conference afterwards. He basically said we were on the front foot the whole time. We were trying to go forward, and he was spot on. But I mean, I think we could have had some. Alfie, I know you're going to talk about. You interviewed him afterwards. I mean, it would have been an amusing one to. When did you think that game was slipping away from you, Nathan? I mean, to me, he desperately would have wanted to win, obviously, and he would have been an absolute insufferable twat if they had won. It would have been knee slides and praying and pumping fists and all this stuff. So the amount of stick he got from the crowd, which was very funny, I don't think it was overdone at all, because exactly, he's reaping what he sowed with just his personality and the way he is. And fans of other clubs who were never managed by Nathan Jones in the Premier League can just shut up, because that's what he brought upon himself. But he had his warnings. He had warnings in the first 10 minutes, the way the game was going to go if he didn't change anything, and he didn't change anything until he was 4-0 down. And so he didn't have a great day. And I don't really sort of care what he does. At the end of the day, he's got Charlton punching above their weight. They got promoted last year in the playoffs, so they should be in the bottom three, really, by rights.
And they had a pretty decent defensive record going into this game, didn't they? But it's not. You are right. It's just that we know what he would have been like had they won, and that's what fuels it all, isn't it? Because you're just trying to what's going to come. So
at the end of the day, he's doing a decent job there. They're still above us in the league after all.
Yeah.
So you can't knock it too much. But yesterday was obviously our day, and it definitely wasn't his. And that was quite funny.
I've got a feeling they go to, is it Stoke next, which was his other previous club where it didn't work out. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, before the game, Nathan Jones was very humble in the press. He said, the Saints are a good team, and I've learned from the mistakes I made and all this sort of stuff. And he said before the game he just wanted business as usual. It's just about winning the game. And to be fair, from his team, it was anything but business as usual. Because as you said, I mean, they'd lost just once in 23 home matches in 2025. They'd won 18 of them. They'd made the Valley a fortress, and yet within 22 minutes of that game, they were made to look like one of the worst teams to ever play in the Championship. They were destroyed from the start. So you have to say that Nathan Jones got it wrong. The players didn't. They weren't aggressive enough at the back. They were sort of too careless at the top, maybe. And but ultimately, I think Saints are really good, and you've got to give credit for that. The players, they were clinical, they were aggressive, they were up for it. Everything that we wanted to see from them.
So what's the difference then, Alfie? What suddenly kind of clicked? Is it about the opposition? And we had those two, I was going to say easier games. That's probably a bit disrespectful, but we've got a bit of confidence going into to that game. Is it just as simple as he's pushed the two central midfielders a bit closer together? Because it's the same squad of players, isn't it? And you look at players like Finn Azaz, who we're kind of finally seeing the player that we thought we would. So he's getting a tune out of him. So he's doing something right.
Yeah, well, I mean, Adam Armstrong's contributed to 5 goals in the last 3 games that Tonder's done. 2 goals, 3 assists. Finn Azaz got 3 goals and an assist, and this was sort of the biggest problem at the top end of the pitch, wasn't it? Really. I think there's a number of things. The last 2 games against, they rode their luck against QPR, and they got the result, and that would have obviously breeded confidence. And then they played a really poor Sheffield Wednesday side and beat them as well. So winning's a habit. So I don't doubt that week has given them a bit of confidence, a bit of enthusiasm. The players maybe that lost a little bit of that when they were getting trodden down every week. They had an international break, probably at a good time to sort of reset some legs and this kind of thing. But also, I do think that from what we're hearing, the detail on the training ground is at a higher level now. It probably is. I think I defended Will Steele a lot, but I think that it was never going to work, I think, is what seems to be the belief. Yeah. And Tonder's just, I think he's doing the simple things right. He's playing players where they should be playing. He's put some experience back into the team, the likes of Jack Stevens, who's come back in, and he's not necessarily a stand-up performer all the time, but he's somebody who is important, I think, to have on the pitch. What he's got Adam Armstrong doing, rather than sort of just constantly being on the final line and trying to get balls in behind to him, having him sort of drop in and link up play, something we haven't really seen from him. That's going really well. And again, I think that the license to play it around the back a bit more as well. Will Steele wanted the team to get forward as much as possible. And in principle, that sounded like something that we all wanted. We all wanted them just to get the ball forward, let's attack, and it leads to chances and crosses and XG. But ultimately, these players, they probably want to play on the back. They're used to doing it under Russell Martin. They're now being given the license to actually knock it around them a few times, take their time. Gavin Bazzunu's getting the ball. And they're pulling players, they're pulling the opposition out, and that's creating the space in behind. I think the detail, the enthusiasm, the motivation, there's probably a lot of things.
It's a bit of a hybrid, isn't it, to what we've seen before? Because, like you say, they were knocking it around a bit, but there's still there was the direct balls, and those balls that Harwood-Bellis was playing yesterday were like he used to when he first came.
Goals 3 and 4, as we said, mine. Goals 3 and 4. It's 3 passes in the third goal. It's literally 3 passes from the box to the opposition box, and I think it's 2 passes from the halfway line to the goal. In goal 4, so they're doing what Will Steele wanted in terms of getting it forward quickly, but they're in the right place to do it, I guess. And I think obviously effort levels gone up, whether it's conscious or subconscious. I think effort levels have gone up, and I think that the players have to put their hands up with that. But they're winning games now. So
Adam Armstrong, Glenn, I think we said kind of like one of the most prolific Championship strikers. He's backfiring and scoring some goals and best game in years. And we spoken on this podcast about how he couldn't play at number 9 and something had to change. And then he's kind of proved us all wrong a bit.
Well, I mean, we've said that. It's more nuanced than that. He can't play up against defenders. He can't play backing into defenders. Though remarkably, there was one incident yesterday where they were terrified of him. And he was stood there with his back to goal, and he was like rolling the ball under his foot. And he had 2 defenders behind him, and eventually he teed it up for Cienza, and he lashed over the bar, I think. But so the way he was playing yesterday it's just very intelligent. The way he just stepped into the big gap that Charlton obligingly left us in midfield, and he was able to pick up the ball and turn. And I would imagine that Charlton commentators and the Charlton bench were going mental at their centre halves for not following him, but it looked like the centre halves didn't really want to follow him in there. But it only works if you get the willing runners from midfield. So the third goal from Casper Jander, that's brilliant, because if you see that one I saw a replay that was from like behind our goal, and you see the Charlton player who is supposed to be with Casper Jander is puffing. He's just not going with him. It's the classic case of a guy breaks from midfield and no one goes with him. And but that only happens if Adam Armstrong is allowed to step into that space and turn and play the pass. The willing runners going forward. Tom Fellows, I mean, if he gets 1-on-1 against a fullback, then the opposition is in trouble, and their left back must be having nightmares about that. Because I mean, how many times did he just go past him? I mean,
there's a lot of chat about him in the comments. I think it's Barry says Fellows mixed up his attacking game a bbit more by going outside the fullback as much as he cut inside, which was making him a bit predictable in previous games. So he had that about him, which was good to see.
And also, I mean, we've also moaned about the formation and the wing backs and stuff like that. And
and all of us.
Well, it doesn't. it worked when it works well. It's great, but if the wing backs don't get forward and provide some width on the sides, it doesn't work, and then you end up with a flat back five, and then it's horrible. But just look at that first goal. With Fellows going down the wing and crossing it, and the other wing back comes flying in and scores. And that was a brilliant header as well. I mean, I'm not Ryan Manning's biggest fan at times, as you know, but that was superb. And you compare that, his determination to get to that ball and head it in, compared to what the very similar chance he had against QPR, where he came in at the back post and he just didn't look like he wanted to go there, and eventually, and the ball eventually just sort of like went nowhere, and the chance went. So. And that first goal was obviously massively important. So there were so many things that were better. But it's interesting, just picking up on something you said about the sort of like slightly modified way that we're playing. What we were doing yesterday,
hybrid sort of way, isn't it?
Yeah, we were playing the ball around at the back, but once we got into midfield, we weren't trying to. The first thought was to go forward. That hasn't always been the case. Yeah. Especially when we were in the Premier League, the first thought was always to knock it straight back to the centre halves, and then that caused our own problems, because then the press just like totally closed in on us. But we're looking to go forward, or we certainly were yesterday, and if you do that, you're going to put a lot of teams under pressure. But I do think Nathan Jones picked the perfect tactics to get hammered by us. He really did, because he left his team too open. And in the context of the Championship, we've obviously got some good players, and you can't allow them that amount of space.
It was a good afternoon, Alfie, for Cam Bragg. And I'd imagine as someone that's followed the under-21s like you have, you've been to loads of their games and followed them quite closely. You must have been quite pleased to see him getting a start yesterday, because it wasn't the best of debuts against Blackburn.
Well, I think he was thrown to the wolves against Blackburn, personally. Look, obviously, at the end of the day, he's a 20-year-old professional footballer, so he has to take responsibility for any mistakes that he makes on the pitch, and that's fair enough. And I'm sure he did when it comes to that Blackburn game. But he shouldn't have been thrown into that situation. He was thrown into a game where the hosts were clearly with their tails up. They were coming at Saints, and he was put into a midfield pivot with Jack Stevens, who, I mean, is not a midfielder. So, that was Will Steele throwing him to the wolves for me. This time he had a chance to get settled in, and he was brilliant. To be fair, Cam Bragg, I didn't actually realise how good he was until I sort of watched it back a little bit, because at the time I felt that he just did all the sensible things right, and his passing stats are brilliant, and Glenn pointed out to me on X that he flew into some tackles as well, and he absolutely did. He was really intense against the ball, but also he's involved in a couple of those goals, as I've already mentioned, with the passing. And I didn't realise that quite so much of the play had actually gone through him, and it allows Caspiander that license to bomb forward and get beyond the final line. And I thought it was a really bold decision to play Cam Bragg over Flynn Downs, even if he's not 100% fit. In a game like that, in a game where I thought they were going to be going into a bit of a lion's den, I thought that it would be, it was a big call, and maybe it was too clever. But actually, it's got to the point now where he's going to start over Flynn Downs. Surely you can't bring Flynn Downs into the team on Tuesday, even if he's fully fit, over Cam Bragg.
No. Hold that thought. I mean, we'll talk about Leicester in a minute, but Leicester in their last game had Harry Winks and Oliver Skipp in midfield, so that's quite a lot of experience there. Yeah. So that will be a little bit of a different test, but
it will be interesting to see what call Tonda makes there then. But to the point, mine, I'm really pleased for him. He's a brilliant lad. He's captain of 21s. He takes all the set pieces. He's the talisman really from midfield. And Russell Martin always really liked him, because as a number 6, he's a very much Flynn Downs mould in terms of a bit of a metronome with the passing. But he showed a different side of the game, as Glenn said, about the intensity and the tackling and things like that as well. So a really difficult year for him last year with a loan which sort of didn't go well. He got bombed out of the squad, came back to Saints 21s. It's never a glorified thing to do, but he'll enjoy that for sure.
Favourite goal of the 5, Glenn? Third one?
Probably the first one, to be honest.
Okay,
probably the first one, but because of the desire of Ryan Manning to get into the box, and the fact that it went in off the bar as well. That always looks good. But no, I mean, all the goals were good. It's hard to. I mean, Azaz dancing around the keeper. You don't often see that these days, do you? Forwards actually taking the ball around the goalkeeper and slotting it in. So that was a good goal as well. But you could make an argument for all of the 5. I think they were all they were all good goals. But
I think we should do a
oh, yeah.
poll on the socials. For people, like, what was
Goal
your
of the
favourite
Yeah,
goal?
maybe so.
Yeah.
Goal
Yeah,
of the week.
Yeah, goal of the week.
Just because we
Just
can.
Just actually one more thing to say about Cam Bragg is that it wasn't so long ago when we played Watford that we only had one midfielder. That was Shea Charles, and we had to put Jay Robinson there, and we had to put Ryan Fraser there. And we've had the game that Alfie was talking about against Blackburn, where we ended up with a midfield with Jack Stevens in it. So we've been short in that area this season. If you look at it now, you've got Cam Bragg has shown that he can play there. You've got Casper Yander, who's one of the first names on the team sheet now. You've got Shea Charles back in a couple of weeks. You've got Flynn Downs still kicking around when he's not ill. And you've got Amo-Ameyaw just signed. So there's now all these players competing for that position, which is those two positions in the current formation that we're playing. And we're obviously going to keep on playing that formation whilst the results are as they are at the moment. So yeah, it's an interesting change in dynamic in the midfield area.
And Glenn, people spoken about Romeo, haven't we?
Yeah, Glenn, people will say what about Aribo? What about Matsky? But I think that Tonda sees those midfielders as number sixes, and specifically, I think he sees those two players as number 10s probably. And I think that Aribo will play on the right hand side of the striker if he does ever play. So just a mention to him.